Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast. Today, we are looking at a critical disconnect in the tech world. In 2026, Canadian organizations are spending more on cybersecurity than ever before, yet breaches continue to rise. Money alone is clearly not the solution to an evolving threat landscape. And joining us to discuss this is Ivo Wiens, the Field Chief Technology Officer for Cybersecurity at CDW Canada. Now, with over 17 years of experience and a deep focus on aligning security with business goals, Ivo is a SAPSA certified architect who understands the strategy behind the defense. He's here to break down the Canadian Cybersecurity Outlook 2026 report and explain how businesses can close the maturity gap. So without a further ado, let's dive in and welcome Ivo. Ivo, we're very pleased to have you on the show today. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be part of this. And I've got a lot of interesting data and a lot of interesting factoids about the study that I can bring forward. And hopefully we can have a great conversation about it. It's been
Absolutely.
a lot of months in the making. So I'm really excited to have this report be out and also bring also the CDW experience along with it.
Absolutely. We're very excited to delve into this report in detail as well. So, how about we do this? We start with our segment with the 2026 Cybersecurity Outlook. CDW Canada, Ivo, it recently launched this Outlook study, which offers a comprehensive look at the current state of digital defense in our country. Please share with us what are the key findings that are driving the
Perfect.
right.
Absolutely, Maheen. This is our 12th year doing the study. We work together with IDC to create a good set of questions. So IDC, the survey company, we work together with them. They go out to the market and they actually interview Canadian organizations. So IT security professionals specifically. So we have 700 Canadian IT security professionals that were surveyed this year. It's usually around that number. So we do cross industry, cross province. And it's the most comprehensive Canadian specific cybersecurity study of its kind. We get great data from it. And from this data, we can really have some good longitudinal data that we can see trends, we can see snapshots. And we've, out of that, we've found some really interesting findings that align with what we're seeing when we're talking to Canadian organizations. My job day to day is to have conversations with CDW clients about their cybersecurity. So you can imagine CDW being a very large value-added reseller for cybersecurity technology and all kinds of other technologies. We're having really serious and honest conversations with our clients. And then we get to line that up with the data that's in the market. So it's sort of a double value type situation.
No, thank you so much for highlighting those insights with our listeners, Ivo. And you're right. I mean, identifying that volume and complexity, they are the main drivers that helps us realize that legacy defense strategies simply aren't enough to withstand current pressures. Now let's explore how AI is driving more sophisticated cyber threats. Please tell us, how is AI changing the nature of cyber threats?
There's multiple ways, and every day it seems like there is a new piece of information around cybersecurity and AI and how they affect everybody from the threat landscape and also from the defense perspective as well. We like to say that we're in an arms race with our attackers when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence will be used. In the last 2 weeks, have been major announcements on the attack, on the defense side. Both Anthropic and ChatGPT have launched their own models. Are yet to be seen what really comes from that. There's a lot of good information around there. Definitely with Mythos and ChatGPT also had their cyber model that they've launched recently. So attackers are also going to use these tools. And that's what we need to really think about. Attackers are using AI to compress the attack cycles. When I talk about that, I'm really talking about what they do from a recon, intrusion, and social engineering. Now they can do that at the same speed that we have at machine speed. The same speed that we can easily create a fun picture. They can do this, what they're doing from their perspective as well. So from that, on the defensive side, now Canadian organizations are interested. and what they can do, but obviously they're cautious. We're talking about cybersecurity experts here. There's a lot of governance that needs to get in the way before you, not get in the way, but governance that needs to be checked before we move forward with something like that. So, really 56% we found that organizations want proven accuracy before trusting AI security tools. So before they deploy something in the environment, more than half of them want to do it. And the leaders are saying the same thing as well. Their message is very clear. We need to make sure there's transparency and governance first, and then do speed second. A lot of projects that are non-secure related that are getting launched out there in the market are getting held back by governance and transparency. A lot of the conversations we have with clients nowadays are harkening back to 5-10 years ago, which is questions about data classification and data loss prevention. So as you can imagine, as you put out bots on the internet, you're making your data accessible, right? And making the right data accessible is always something that organizations are taking very seriously day after day, because we've seen so many major and minor mishaps when it comes to data out on the internet.
Right.
So yeah, an absolute arms race back and forth, and there's a lot that can be done on either side, but you have to be cautious. Yet, and Canadian organizations are cautious when it comes to deploying these technologies.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for walking us through the AI and sophisticated threats, which don't necessarily is talked about enough. And you're right, when AI-driven threats, they can bypass standard detection. It really forces organizations now to shift from a reactive stance to a much more predictive security model. Next up, Ivo, let's look at the gap between cybersecurity awareness and maturity. What are the gaps that are preventing organizations from achieving that strong security?
The one of the big findings we had this year is, and this is our third year doing a maturity test with Canadian organizations. So we get them to self-assess them. We use the CMMI model from 1 to 5 for them to rate themselves in different categories. And then we ask some follow-up questions on how you rank yourself in certain areas. And it was really interesting to see there was a true gap between what organizations believe, where they believe they are, and where they actually are, especially when it comes into some key areas like identity management. Identity management is a really tough thing to figure out in Canadian organizations, to really get right when it comes to not only doing the architecture, but also choosing the right technologies and making sure that's can be fixed on a day-to-day perspective. So identity management was a big one. The other interesting one is third-party security risk. And third-party security risk, we found that organizations thought they were doing well until we actually got in a little deeper with the questions. And then there we found what we call the maturity paradox. There is a real gap between the two. And third-party risk is really interesting because it's the single worst performing domain in the study. So 68% of organizations rank themselves below a level 3. So, a lot of organizations rank below a level 3 when it came to third-party security. And third-party security also plays in another really interesting piece of the study, which is there's a real gap between the haves and have-nots in Canadian organizations. Organizations that have a lot of money are doing great when it comes to cybersecurity implementation, but Canadian organizations don't have the budget yet for cybersecurity are feeling that they're falling a little behind. The challenge with third-party risk is that these smaller organizations are the ones that are actually supplying services to these large organizations, and the risk shows itself either, even if the risk is not there when you're as a large organization, as you implement these controls, you're seeing the risk from having to deal with these smaller organizations. These are the organizations that may do your HVAC, the organizations that may clean your carpets for you, and they are going to be communicating with you, and they are bringing their own third-party risk as part of it. So it's a real challenge when it comes to splitting those two areas. But that paradox and understanding that there is, that there is a real need for Canadian small medium business to grow from a cybersecurity perspective it's something that it's near and dear to my heart. It's something that we do a lot at CDW, helping organizations figure this out. And I think that there's a lot that our industry is doing from a commoditization, or at least from a pricing perspective, that can maybe start bringing these really strong controls to the small medium business in Canada.
Mhm. No, this helps us understand that building a resilient strategy, it requires focusing on maturity and posture rather than just collecting the latest security tools. And to
Correct.
all the business leaders and IT managers that are watching us, in 2026, a high budget, it does not really equal high security, really. This
Right.
report that you mentioned and the insights from it, it really proves, Ivo, that many organizations are still falling short because their security goals, they aren't aligned with their business goals. So to all our listeners, please don't wait for the next breach to really audit your strategy. Align your security with your business outcomes right now to really ensure that your technology investment actually keeps you safe. So thank you for this conversation, Ivo.
Thank
Now
you.
let's get back and really explore why increased spending isn't improving the security outcomes. Ivo, why doesn't increased spending always improve cybersecurity?
So we're seeing a growth when it comes to the budget that the not just sometimes the IT budget, but most of the time the security budget within the IT budget, it's seeing growth. And like you said, Maheen, we're not seeing we're still seeing ransomware be one of the top attacks that are happening out there. And there's multiple reasons for this. And what we take from the study is there's two areas. Cloud security has been it's an area where we've we haven't really paid as much attention as we have on endpoint. So when it comes to endpoint, the technologies, endpoint detection and response, or EDR, as we say, or managed detection and response technologies, have been really deployed in a lot of organizations. And that technology, because of it's so much been invested in those tools, we really have good behavior analysis that's happening on the endpoint, right? So if you're the kind of person who never launches a script or executes a nefarious program in your machine, an alert will throw and people will detect that. So that's and we're in a way winning the arms race when it comes to endpoint detection and behavior analysis when it comes on the endpoint. So what attackers are doing is saying, hey, I think about ROI as much as the people I'm attacking. Now I'm going to look at other areas. So cloud and specifically cloud misconfiguration has been a real area where we've seen attackers go towards. They're sort of like water. They'll find a way. They'll find the most vulnerable area within your environment. And the other area that we've seen a lot as well is misconfigurations when it comes to endpoint detection and the broadening blast radius that they can that attackers can get into that are not usually deployed when it comes to where we don't have controls deployed when it comes to cybersecurity in those areas. So with those pieces, even though folks are spending more money in cybersecurity, we're still seeing that gap. And I think the real recommendation here is start thinking about risk. Have understand what risk means for your organization, business risk, and the closer you can get your security program to the business and closer to what the business is doing, the more budget you'll have, but also the more direction you'll have, right? Think about business outcomes as they align to the technologies you're buying or to the activities you're doing, be it people, process, or technology within your organization. If you align those closer to the business, you're going to be more successful. It's easier said than done, obviously, as you can imagine. Not every leader, not every board is understanding of cybersecurity. We've seen that continues to grow. There's a lot of understanding of cybersecurity within leadership. We're also seeing a key factor in the study this year was we actually saw the involvement increase as well. So involvement's a key word, right? Because that means that they're just not saying, here's the money. I trust you. You're my security expert. They're saying, here's the money. Show me the data. Show me what comes from that. So it can be a real challenge for Canadian organizations. As your budget increases, so do your complications in terms of having to measure cybersecurity within your organization.
Right. No, directing capital towards talent and integrated services rather than siloed products is a no-brainer, and it's what finally turns a tech investment into a strategic shield. So thank you so much for highlighting that, Ivo. Finally, let's look at preparing for the evolving threat landscape for 2027. I know we're halfway through the 2026 almost,
For sure.
but let's look at how do we evolve continuously as in this day and age.
Uh,
How should organizations prepare for future cyber threats?
Yeah, and if we're going to talk specifically about technologies, I mean, obviously there are, once yeah, I talked about getting closer to the business, and that's super important. That's something you absolutely need to do. But you're going to have to figure out which technologies are the right thing for you to get started. Third-party risk, there are technologies out there that can help with that. But, obviously understanding your organization and who you're dealing with and what type of communications you have with your third-party partners is super essential. Um, Another one is identity management, and making sure that you understand the identities in your environment is going to be super important, not only now, as you continue to grow as you continue, or your organization continues to grow, either by acquisition or whatever way they're growing, but also as we start moving into agentic AI. So as you can imagine, the agents that are out there are going to need an identity, and that identity is going to have to be something within your organization, right? If the Ivo agent is a copy of Ivo's permissions, they will have access to the same data. But should other folks have access to the Ivo agent in the same way? Right. So that can be really tricky, as in how are you going to manage identity within your organization? And things like privileged access management is really important. So PAM, as we call in the business, those admins, and what the behavior that those admins do on a day-to-day basis, it's important for you to understand that it's not all the time that they need to do it. There's limited amount of times in which they need to do those administrative functions and those really important functions, and being able to monitor and audit that is sort of an easy way to start taking some bites out of the identity management challenge. And another big area that we've seen a lot of growth is secure access service edge, or as we call in the business, SASE. And there's really been an enabler for what we call zero trust architecture. So being able to deploy technology in a way where you understand the identity, you understand what they're doing, and understand why they're doing it, without having to, we call it trust but verify, right? So we verify the access and understanding that piece. Secure Access Service Edge as a technology is really growing. It was really interesting in the study. Only 3.4% of organizations said they're not planning of implementing Secure Access Service Edge, which is really interesting because go back 5 years, we had to explain what SASE is. Now we really get to bring the secure the software as a service model closer to security, and be able to not only scale from a capability perspective, but also scale from an overall global coverage perspective, having people work from anywhere, do anything they work from anywhere, work from home, and still have the same policies across different locations. So to technology perspective, obviously, as you can imagine, I can go on for a while, but those are the pieces that we've seen most growth in the study specifically. Yeah, and folks can get the study from www.cdw.ca/security study.
Absolutely. And this is quite eye-opening as well, really anticipating more targeted adversaries and higher executive expectations that will really define which Canadian businesses thrive and which ones struggle to recover. This was a very insightful conversation. Thank you so much for keeping it so nice and detailed, Ivo. As you wrap up now, what advice would you give to leaders that are very overwhelmed by cybersecurity challenges?
The landscape is overwhelming. The amount of information that needs to be taken in, I know I live and breathe in it, and every day I'm learning something new. It's really overwhelming. But I'm going to harken back to what I said earlier. Stay close to the business. Understand what your leaders want to do. That leaders are understanding cybersecurity more and more. Now it's a kitchen table conversation. It's not just a boardroom conversation, right? So they understand the value of the data and understand what needs to be protected. And start small, right? Focus on those key areas where you say, hey, I know this is really important for the day-to-day business, and let's move forward with it. And also look for things like easy wins. Being able to have single sign-on, have no passwords, or bypassing those things and bringing other controls in place gives you wins as a security person, rather than being the department of no, as we usually are called. You get to bring those things forward. So there could be a lot of there could be a few things you can find. Take small bites, get closer to the business, and find those key areas where you can make security an enabler within an organization. They do exist, and they are out there, and that'll buy you more reputation within your organization.
That is such a great reminder that security is a journey of alignment, not just a one-time purchase. So thank you so much for your time, Ivo. And
Thank
thank
you.
you again for sharing such great expertise and your vision with us.
Awesome. Great to be here. Thank you very much.
And listeners, that was Ivo Wiens from CDW Canada, a masterclass in this 2026 cybersecurity outlook and how to move beyond spending to achieve real, measurable security outcomes. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and visit us at CanadianSME.ca to learn more about how we are supporting the ecosystem. You can also visit the foundation page at SMEfoundation.ca. Before we leave, a special shout out to our partners, UPS and ADP, for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses across Canada. Please keep moving forward, and we'll see you in the next one.